afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Pixels. We have our honorable guest, Shri Justice Arjun Kumar Sikri, former Judge Supreme Court of India, for a keynote chat on evolving legal framework for digital entertainment space. So, over to you.
Thank you, Nisha, and good afternoon to all. I think there may be people from other jurisdictions, so good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever is the time in your time zone. It's really a pleasure for me to be here and speaking to you on this occasion. Uh, the topic which I have been given, or the subject on which I have to speak, is evolving legal framework in digital entertainment space. Let me say at the outset that I have a very bad throat, so I wanted to speak less. In any case, now because of the program has been delayed and started delayed, therefore I'm asked to concise my address in 10 minutes, which I'll try to do. Uh, and in these 10 minutes, I will be only able to flag the issues. Let me first of all at the outset say about the digital world in which we are living and the way it has changed our lives. Digital in every sphere, whether it is digital entertainment, whether it is digital economy, or any other field. It is all pervasive now. This technology earlier was a facilitator, I may say so, in so many ways. And technology was used, whether it is courts, whether it is government functioning, whether it is banking functioning, whether it is entertainment or media, etc. But COVID has made us realize that this technology, which was only a facilitator, has transformed the lives and all these aspects which I have just not told. And coming to when we talk of digital entertainment, we know that it is a multifaceted. We are constantly consuming content, whether it is streamed, it is downloaded, native or web based, listening to or playing content on our phones, and our consumption continues to rise. The one major thing which during COVID period India has witnessed particularly, that is spike in digital uh, media consumption, where people turn to over the top platforms, or what we call OTT. Uh, Interestingly, because of its uh, overarching coverage and its importance and the way it is making inroads into the lives of every persons. And on the one hand, there are issues of quality of contents. There may be issues of privacy, which are again very very important issues. And there are some of the aspects which we have seen in the online system or the digital system, that the issues which may arise of cyber crimes, etc. So in this entire backdrop, and when OTT has assumed such a importance, and so therefore the question always crops up: what is going to be the legal framework for regulating this digital entertainment space? uh, if I may say so, with liberalization and globalization of the economies which have started taking place in last 30, 40 years, and now we talk entire world as one village insofar as economies are concerned. uh, we have come, it has affected the legal regime also, the way it should be governed. We had laissez-faire economies maybe 70, 80 years ago, where everybody is free to do the business in any manner he or she wants to do. Then, particularly talking in Indian terms, after our independence and in 50s, etc., we had we used to call it license Raj or Kota Raj, where the government was controlling almost each and every activity. But with the globalization, uh, and whereas on the one hand we have gone back to laissez-faire economy in one sense, with the minimum governmental control, but at the same time regulations is needed. So we have, instead of government regulation, we have come to regulatory regime, where regulatory process is by an independent agency. And it has happened in India. If you see, we now insurance, civil aviation, even this telecom, and the competition commission, we have all regulatory regimes. The question which came in this context, when we were talking about, or the India's people were thinking how to evolve a legal framework in digital entertainment space, they came out, and this is a good, I would say, start at least, that instead of there being an independent regulator, let there be self-regulation, that kind of mode, and which has happened in some of the earlier like NBSA, if I may say so, News Broadcaster Standard Authority, where there is a self-regulation, and the industry regulates itself by providing its ombudsman, you can say, or a chairperson of NBSA with some I mean members on that panel. Now, insofar as digital entertainment is concerned, this has been the matter of discussion not only in India but elsewhere also. Australia led the field by bringing the regulation by amending Broadcasting Services Act 1992 in the year 2000. Singapore has also brought OTT and video on demand service under regulation in 2018. And China has also come out with some kind of regulations. Hong Kong has also come out, and Turkey has come out. There are various countries. But in India, we have, with the amendment of IT Rules 2021, three-tier arrangement has been prescribed. First is that people, any person who has the grievance against the content, or the either the content, or what should be the rating of a particular program, they will in the first instance go to the that particular platform. If they are not happy, then at the second tier level, this is again the arrangement which is made by self regulation, that committee would look into it. And but then there is a third tier where the some government control comes at that stage. Having said so, I would only, for paucity of time, would say that insofar as level 3 committee is concerned, it in the beginning at least, it should not try to overreach or what tier 2 decides. And the exercise of adjudicatory powers by executive branch of the government, if not done judiciously, will jeopardize the freedom of digital entertainment in India. So let us see how it works. Up to now, it has worked appropriately, and I think there's no case which has gone to tier 3 at all. Simultaneously, another method by which regulatory regime is sought to be controlled is Cinematograph Amendment Bill 2021. Then this is a remarkable shift in contemporary models for dissemination of the content owing to the rapid digitization and internet adoption. This is still a bill, but then it will take into consideration the it has come simultaneously with the abolition of FCAT, that is Film Certification Appellate Tribunal, which may increase the work of the courts. But at the same time, we hope that with the amendment in this bill, some of the concerns shall be taken care of. If I may say, this the main concerns of the industry may also be protecting the intellectual property in digital entertainment space, and at the and there are questions of data privacy, which I said. Ultimately, when it comes to either the regulator or the courts, the what is to be kept in mind is, and it is to be examined from that prism, democracy, dissent, and the Constitution of India, which gives under Article 19(1)(a) freedom of speech. So there has to be a balance between all the stakeholders, and it is in this form. Let us see how we proceed and where we go into. We are in a fascinating world. We are going through an interesting phase, and with the less and less governmental control, but with more of self-regulation, we'll be able to sail through. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your kind address. Even though you were not keeping well, we really appreciate it from IMAI, for you coming here and sparing your time. Thank you so much, audience. Please stay tuned for our next session. Stay safe. Thank you. A very good afternoon to everyone.
Hi, good afternoon.
A very good. Welcome to fifth edition of Pixels Digital Entertainment, reaching a new peak. My name is Neha Gadi, and I'll be your host for this session. Thank you for joining us. Before we start the discussion, we would like to thank our title partner Voot, platinum partner Amazon Prime Video, CX partner Zendesk, content delivery partner Limelight Networks, gold partner Lionsgate Play, and Shimaru Entertainment. We are now moving on to our next session: how technology is changing content development and delivery, powered by Limelight Networks. I'd like to introduce you to the moderator for the session, Prashant Rao, partner Deloitte. Joining him, Charlie Thomas, Director of Solutions Engineering, APAC, Limelight Networks, Shabir Movin, MD and CTO, Zenga Media, and Harish Sharma, Vice President, Sales, Pinkvilla. Over to you, Prashant.
Thank you. Thanks, Nidhi. I hope everyone can hear us loud and clear. So this is a very interesting topic that has been given to us, how technology is changing content development and delivery. So if you've been wondering how Paul Walker was brought alive in Fast and Furious 7 after he was dead, and some scenes were shot after that as well, and how Talaiwa doesn't seem to age anytime at all, or how you kind of think of a holiday in Maldives, and the next time you're watching an OTT, they tell you exactly where to go, how to go. How does all of this happen? So if you're thinking some of these things on your mind, then maybe you're at the right place in this discussion as such. So here I have with me three really renowned experts in each of their areas, and we're going to talk something about how technology has changed this area in the last few decades. So if you just go back a little bit in nostalgia, and if you look into it in terms of content creation, just try this experiment of going back and watching a cricket match in the 90s, which was telecasted, and then have a look at few overs there, and then come back and watch the cricket match now. You will feel the difference of how technology is advanced, the clarity in terms of voice, the stump cam, the various angles of coverage, various things that you get to see, which was the statistics that comes along with it. You can see the difference. If you go ahead and see a movie, your childhood favorite movie, and then come back and see a movie at this point of time, you would see the difference in the colors. You would see the difference in the way it is shot. It may not be as much appealing to you as it was appealing to you, in that particular point of time. So we have come a long way in terms of content production when it comes to this. We'll talk about a few aspects of this as we move along. When we come to content delivery, again, if you just rewind back a few years during our childhood days, maybe when we were trying to see how do we get our content. We used to go queue up in theaters, which were very limited, to get a glimpse of our favorite hero there, see huge cutouts. I don't remember when I did that in the last 5 years, maybe, or 2 years anyway, pandemic, last 5 years. And then if you look into it, how are we getting our content? There was this recorder sets, VCRs, VCDs, your friendly neighborhood store where you can go and rent them and come and watch along with your friends and family. You used to go and borrow a music cassette from your friend, and they used to use a what do you say, a blank cassette to record them and listen to them at your own thing. If you ask any of your current generation kids about this, they'll look at it as if are you from the same planet or what? So that's the amount of change that this has gone through in the last few years per se. So when we talk about this subject, it's very very vast. When we look into it, there is content creation, how the cameras have developed, how the technology is developed in terms of understanding the consumer himself. There is development in that. There is development in terms of the AR, VR, there is development in the AI side of things. There are development in the delivery side of things, how compression happens. There are a bunch of things that we know, and there's a bunch of things which happen seamlessly behind us to deliver us the content that we see and we have gotten used to. So all of this is quite a vast topic. So if I have to jump in without wasting much of the time and then get some knowledge out of the remnant speakers here, to start with, uh, the camera, the mobile phone that we have all gotten used to so much, your companion for almost the entire day. The cameras in these have enhanced so much that now there have been filming happening on these cameras. The latest edition of the iPhone, which came in, it had specifically addressed some of the aspects that one would need for a cinematography as such. A cinematographic mode was announced as such. So there are various advancements happening on this. So maybe Harish, if you can take a moment to kind of explain how this has changed the phone cameras, and how it's changed the cost of production, the content itself, the way you capture the content in terms of in your area, the film stardom and paparazzi. The moment is not captured, it's gone. You need to capture the moment while it's happening. Be the first to report, kind of. So can you maybe take us through a little bit of things around this area?
Thanks, Prashant. Thank you for the question. We all recall, as you rightly said, that couple of years back. I mean, 10 years, 15 years back, we used to record the VCR, etc. And when we look back 12 years, 13 years back, then the first camera in the mobile phone, that was the camera, VGA camera, that has a very low light, that was not comfortable to record or shoot or anything. And then gradually, what happened that all mobile phone, all the original smartphone manufacturers, gradually they started competing and they started delivering good quality cameras. And this quality enabled smartphone actually created competition for DSLRs. So usually, what used to happen earlier, or it still happens, that when we have to shoot a video, then quality DSLRs has to happen, and there is a proper studio has to set up. There is a light, proper art director, complete studio. Everything has to be defined in line to achieve a better quality content, a better quality video, so that we can deliver to the audience and we can engage. But last couple of years, what has happened, that each, because user has got the camera and these are the quality camera, the people has got the power to create content on their own. So the studio has moved from the film city or Bombay to all the part of the world, and somebody sitting in tier 1, tier 2 towns, and they has become the micro influencer. They are creating content, and right, and those content they are posting on social media platform, they are earning money. So a lot of things has changed over the time. If we look at in detail that what are the impact actually has happened in all these 4 5 years, then the first impact we can understand from the perspective of the opportunity of creativity means that there are the multiple people who never used to get the chance to showcase their creativity. And that is the reason when the TikTok came, it became very very popular, because multiple people across the country, they got the chance, they started shooting with their smartphone, and they started posting the quality video on the platform, and those video started going viral, became popular, started engaging more audience, right? So this is how the shift happened from a common studio to the normal, natural, and different part of the country. The second part is the cost of creating content. So if we look at the overall scene, there are the three elements or three stakeholders. The first, the original publisher like us, or who are creating content, original content. They are the middlemen, or we can say social media platform, who are hosting content of other partners, actually those who are creating content. And the third is the users. So in last couple of years, the user actually has creating so much content that is the saving the cost and created another opportunity for the social media platform to monetize and making revenue out here, right? And this all happened because of the smartphone, the quality video enabled camera people started getting in. And if you see the latest iPhone 13 or Samsung or every other phone, everybody is emphasizing on the quality camera, right? So so in my opinion, in couple of years there are the multiple changes happened. The first, the power has moved from the media houses to the common user. The second time, the revenue opportunity has increased, the income opportunity has increased to micro influencers. The third, the major benefit has gone to the brand also. So most of the brand, they have started using micro influencer to create a content and achieve their marketing goals. So all such things, major different thing has happened just because of one handsets, one quality phone the people have got in the hand.
Got it. So you summarized very well how an advancement in camera was just not a change that the cameraman had to adopt into and then change the way of shooting, but also it created a complete revolution around the cost of creating a content. Hence, content creators were no longer the big studios, but also the common man started creating content, and hence the content creation moved to a different level. The consumption patterns also changed. People are watching a lot more in apps like TikTok, etc. The short form video content increased as such. So there's a complete shift in the ecosystem with a one small change which is triggered by this camera.
Yeah.
Very, very well summarized, Harish. Thank you. You want to add something, Charles?
Yeah, I'd like to. So that's it's interesting because this shift has been over time, and it's great to focus on some of the good things, but it's also important to kind of keep an eye on some of the challenges that get posed by this, right? So back when the studios were producing content, they may take months or years to produce a piece of content that was 120 minutes long. Now you have these platforms where people are literally uploading hundreds of thousands of minutes of content per minute. So it creates two really big challenges. One is that's a lot of content, and you need to store that content somewhere so that it can be delivered to all of these users so they can get it. And the second piece is once you have all that content, you need to create a platform that people can navigate and discover content so that they'll stay and watch through all of that content. So those are new problems that they have to overcome, because if you're going to monetize it, you need to make sure that you do have content that people can create, and you also make sure that people can navigate and they can find content that's relative to them.
Right, right. In fact, you made a segue to the next question that can come in there. With this quality of content production increasing, the file sizes are increasing, the quantity of files are increasing, like you rightly mentioned. The amount of content is increased. So there are a few things which has to happen in this as such. One is should be content discovery which has to happen. The content delivery has to kind of improve on that side. So if we have to take one by one, maybe you and Shahid can take this as such. In terms of the delivery challenges, these are huge content files. When you take a video in a 4K versus when you take a video in a normal resolution, the amount of data that is to be transmitted from one place to another is different. And nowadays, the modern consumer, expectations are also very high. The moment I press the button, I need to be able to view immediately, seamless. There should be no streaming coming in. So with this, what are the kind of challenges, and what are players doing in this area to kind of address this? So you want to take that, Charlie and Shahid?
Yeah, I can quickly. My opinions on some of the things that they're doing. One assumption is sure the content is getting larger, but the other thing you need to consider is companies are being more intelligent about how they actually prepare their content for delivery. So the audience is actually getting significantly larger as more and more people have devices to be able to view this content. So content's being prepared in a way that you can deliver it to somebody and view it on a very, very small screen. So on your mobile phone at a very, very remote location. So a very, very low bit rate. So at the lower end, we're actually seeing bit rates go down. But you also want to have that content that's available for somebody that is on a lean back experience. So if I'm going to have that same content, I want a platform that can be intelligent enough to deliver the right bit rate and the right encoding to the right platform. So if I try to give somebody that's an end user viewing my content on a platform that's connected to a TV, the same one that they watch on a phone, that's not going to be a good user experience. So what we see people doing is using intelligence in their platforms to encode content for different delivery platforms, and make sure that when people do discovery, they're getting access to content that would be appropriate to their environment. So you'll see that you get different content on a mobile environment than you do on, if you're on a console or you're on a TV environment. The other piece is, while you need to have many bit rates, right? So you might have 6 or 10 different bit rates to be able to get to that content. That creates a lot of storage requirements and a lot of infrastructure to be able to cache that content and be able to support those small burst events, right? So when you have a piece of content that goes viral, you may have a huge amount of traffic that goes into just one state, and you need to be able to have capacity to be able to support that.
Right. Shabir, you want to add on something to that?
You know, uh, Fortunately or unfortunately, I would say both ways. We've got a large portfolio in the media business. I mean, we are like a full life cycle business. So we have our own OTT platform where I have to deal with all the problems from technology point of view of storage, processing, bit rates, everything that Charlie said is what we have to deal with. And we've been there for about 13 years now. So we've seen the 2G network to going up to now expected 5G. So we've seen all kind of challenges. We did IPL in 2009 and with 6 million concurrent users, and everything was bursting out of capacity. I mean, the whole India's network was kind of bursting out of capacity. That's how bad it was. So we've seen that part, but in a portfolio, we have our own production unit. So I deal with camera related issues, which spoke about. We have a lot of portfolio companies which are real time production, which means they're producing real time, editing in real time, and publishing real time. So we are not going in with DSLRs and all of that. It's all mobile phone driven solutions that we've created. Then we have our web series productions and all of that, which are high end productions, which needs full 4K kind of productions. We also have another company which is called Digital 2 Sports, which has all the cricketing rights worldwide for a lot of properties, including IPL and all, World Cup and all of these. So there, what we did was we did not want to do the in stadium video streaming. That's I've done it before. It's not a very profit making business, so we got away from that. But what we did was we took audio rights and we videofied the audio rights. So we had commentators, we have influencers, we have all of these packaged into one audio commentary session, and it became a very beautiful thing. And we've got millions of people watching it now. I mean, we were ourselves surprised because we had not expected that kind of traffic for a content of that nature. But what happened was the whole studio, which was about 150 feet studio, was virtual studio. There was nothing real in that. We had multiple screens. We had virtual screens inside the virtual studios where presenters were coming and presenting. So that was like multi-layered complications that we had added. We had Twitter feed going in. We had a lot of integrations going in, because in the virtual world with AR, VR, and just normal virtual world, you can do a lot of stuff, right? So we could shine it way better than even a let's say $100,000 studio artwork would have done. It could become much better. And the beauty is, you don't like it, you just change it. In the next 20 minutes, you can have a new studio with a new setup, which you cannot imagine doing this in a real life scenario. So I think those are some of the great changes that have happened. And we have another company called HoloSuit, which is leading in the AR VR space. What Charlie mentioned, that the moment you're talking about anything which is pure vanilla, beyond pure vanilla, you're talking about the file weight going up. Imagine what's going to happen with 360 videos, right? Imagine what will happen with real life augmented reality videos. The weight of the video and the transfer is itself a challenge. Storage is another challenge, and when you have to do multi-bit rates, it's another challenge. I still remember till about a year back, actually 2 years back, we used to run a small farm. When I say small, it was like 2,000 servers farm that I used to run, which was my own edge points all over the world, because we were still catering to low network devices, which are in very low network, and we needed to give them a bitrate which no CDN was providing. The CDNs provide you 128 bits or more. That's the lowest that they can go. And if you ask them for lower than that, they will be shocked looking at your face that are you still in that stone age. But unfortunately, there are users who are in that space, and you have to deal with them. And we have a lot of those users in our OTT business, which we need to cater to them. So we have to provision for them till that network becomes better all over the world, and there is no black patches anywhere. Um, and obviously, we are doing multi CDN, multi everything that is possible technology wise. But from a virtual world point of view, I think the world is really changing fast. And two things are making that change. Like, for example, if you look at the camera technology, Sony's biggest bet is no more in the DSLR. Their biggest bets are on the phone now. And they, in fact, were one of the only unique companies which actually went and did a crowdsourced phone building with their Xperia phone. And the new Xperia that has come up, they say it is at par with any DSLR. It has the same technologies as the DSLR. They have just squeezed it into and put it into a phone, and it has the same capabilities with professional camera people doing reviews for it and all of that. So I think that tech change is significant. We in fact do a lot of virtual reality, augmented reality training for Indian defense, where the whole special ops training is done through our VR, AR technology that we've built. And that gives us a lot more confidence, because when you can be as precise and accurate when it has to be, when you have to be shooting virtual enemies with a virtual gun, if you have to be building accuracy there, then accuracy in real life other content is much easier. So we've been building a lot of those aspects also. So I think it's very unique position that we guys are living through. This is like a change of a paradigm shift, I would say, is what we've seen. So in fact, what we are seeing through right now and what we will see in the next 3 years itself is going to be similarly different as what we saw from the cassette industries to the digital industry. I think a similar, much faster, much bigger change will happen in the next 3 years. And it's inevitable. I mean, it's going to happen for sure. It's just that who's riding the wave is what is important, and who's more prepared is what is important. In fact, one of our product, Instant Bollywood, which is also one of our companies, which competes with Pink Villa with Harish, uh, the whole crew is does not have a single DSLR or normal cameras. They're all equipped with mobile phones, on the fly editing, on the fly publishing. Everything is as miniaturized as possible. Even the mics are not boom mics, they're like micro mics, as small as possible, because you have to be agile, you have to be able to move, you have to go to different places. And the faster you can, the less weight you are, the faster you can move. The more heavier you become, you have to carry all your lights and equipments and everything, you can't get there on time. So we had to change those strategies for different teams with doing different activities.
So in fact, Shabir, you covered a wide range of topic in that 2 minutes, 3 minutes as such, from in terms of delivering the content, what Charlie was saying, in terms of the bit rates that you're going to transfer is going to be different based on the consumption happening on different phones per se, vis-a-vis the network speeds, based on the network speeds you defer it. There are on-phone computing which is happening to kind of change and download and keep based on prediction. You're going to watch this,
Yeah.
you have a good network, download it so that you
Yeah.
when you don't have network also you can consume it in a different way, kind of. And then you
That's it.
spoke about the aspect of virtual AR and VR. And very good example was creating a virtual wall, and how the studio was built up for this particular purpose. And in fact, AR VR is just we are just in the touch with regard to where it can go from here onwards. We've seen
Yes.
various animated series which are coming in, whether it's the Lion King or the famous animated series which are coming in. Two, for example, there are series which are coming in, say the Dragon, which comes in Thrones, which people watch in, which merges in seamlessly with the environment as such. So, where do you see the AR VR going in from where it is now to where it can get to in immediate future? Maybe let's not talk too far into the future per se. Uh, like you said, you found that in stadium coverage, maybe it's normal. We want to differentiate it. We could do a differentiated offering like a dugout in a different aspect where various people come and contribute, statistics come in. So maybe a few examples from each of your streams on how AR/VR is going to help.
This cricketing space that I mentioned, cricketing space and virtual presentation. So for example, two commentators or one celebrity somewhere else, one influencer somewhere else, and the commentator somewhere else, sitting in five different studios, being blended into one studio, right? In fact, we actually ended up doing that. We had one commentator sitting out of Delhi, one out of Dubai, and one out of Mumbai, and the studio was virtual. Everybody was with a green screen, and they all were merged into one frame, just like how we are right now, but we are in square boxes, right? It's not looking natural. It's not like we are in one place. But imagine all the four of us sitting in chairs in one podium, which is a virtual podium. And it's not difficult in today's time, right? All you have to do is place cameras and the TVs in positions or displays in positions where you can actually do an eye contact and talk. So what we did was we had one commentator here coming from Delhi, one commentator here from Bombay, and what we did was to replace this commentator in Delhi, we put a screen here which was broadcasting the Delhi commentator, and the other screen had Bombay commentator in Delhi, and they were looking at each other's face through the screen and talking. But in the virtual projection, what it came out is as if you're having an eye contact conversation. The only thing you couldn't do is shake hands, but everything else you could do as an eye contact conversation. And with speed going up, it's really becoming fast. And I think 5G will make a significant difference, will make a lot of difference. It's not about the AR VR technology which can I think that's already there. The content is yet to be created because the network is not there. The moment the 5G network comes in, we will be able to. So in Hollow Suit, we have a jacket and a pant, which is what why we call it a suit, which is basically full motion tracking suit. It basically can control. I can pair the suit with a robot sitting in Japan or in US, right? And with a 5G network, in real time basis, I'll be able to control it. I can go make a tea for you using the robot. The robot is making the tea, but the one who's actually making the tea is me and serving it to you. I can do disaster recovery work. I can do tons of different things. I can do policing robots where the policeman is actually sitting inside the office, but the robot is outside and is basically mimicking the activities. So there are two things which are very difficult in the world. One is teaching or training human beings, and the second is even more difficult is teaching and training robots. And robots are a reality. It's going to be a part of our life. Everything that you will see around us, from your vacuum cleaner which is already turned into a robot, to your kitchen turning into a robot, your car turning into a robot which is now becoming autonomous, is actually nothing but a robot doing the job, right? So everything will turn into a robot, but how do you train them? You can't write miles of codes. So just like in programming, you have visual programming now. Robots will be trained by motion and by function, not by writing codes anymore. So I think that's the reality. In fact, we are shareholders of Yuvraj Singh Cricket Academy, which is a cricket academy that they run. And we are, I mean, this is not announced as yet, but I'll just let you know too, because we are talking immediate future. We're talking the next few months, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 months. We're launching a fully virtual cricket academy where the avatar of Yuvraj Singh, which is a 3D model, is a fully interactive model which will train you on cricket on all aspects. And you can interact with it. You can freeze it on a place, go around it, see the shot, see the angle of the shot. And what it is doing is through the camera, it is looking at your shots, which you're playing in front of the phone, like phone put on a tripod and you're playing in front of it. It's mapping your shots with the best shot coordinates of Yuvraj Singh, and will tell you the error percentage of where you're going error, and it will give you a vocal response saying pull your elbow up a little more to get that accuracy. If you play the shot like this, you will draw your power from the back, not from your arm. because in sports it's all about where you draw the power from, not always. If you're playing a sports like a cricket, it's not, the power always doesn't come from your hands, it always comes from your back, from your thighs, in different places. So, and the positioning and the posturing makes the difference, right? And it'll train you in real time. And we are talking product ready, going live. We're just finishing the marketing plan to go live now.
The perspective is very very encouraging. I would say maybe you can do something where the bot can observe what I'm doing and say, okay, Prashant Rao does consulting this way, and while I may be holidaying somewhere, three of my engagements it can do through, and it can advise my clients as to what is to be done in the future.
You know, Prashant, what is really possible in today's world right now as we speak is we do a 3D model of you, and you go holidaying. Somebody else wears a hollow suit jacket and uses your 3D model avatar and starts doing presentations on you. One of your juniors can do presentation because your client loves looking at your face. That I have a senior guy dealing with me, not a junior guy. But the actual guy talking is the junior guy who's using your
He's like the
avatar.
movie double in the stunt scenes.
Yes, 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 yes.
Well, that's a
The
little
only
more.
person
That's a
who
little
can do it in
scary,
real
actually.
life, all of this, only person who can do it in real life is Rajinikanth. Other than that, everything has to be technology or virtual.
Technology driven, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You want to add anything, Harish, to the point of AR, VR, and how you using it in your industry?
No, totally agree. I mean, completely agree. Next 3 years going to be the major shift in the terms the content are being driven and the way the technology has been shaped up. I firmly believe that there is a gap. The 5G suppose comes, and there is a people are actually waiting for that opportunity to capitalize and start creating those content. Like just look 4.5 years back when the 4G was launched. Actually, there is a certain abundance of content started coming across the social media platform everywhere, because there are so many users who are creative, who has got potential to create. Similarly, the moment 5G gets launched and this AR VR reality, what happens, there is so many talented individual with creative aptitude will come out, and there will be different altogether competition, not only in the field of the media publishing houses, but also in all the field of the technology. I just but the relevancy of the content creation going to be existing in the sense, like if I talk about the content creation opportunity, that should be relevant, that should be engaging, that should have the element of timeliness. I give you the a small example of this Vicky and Katrina marriage just happened 3 days back. So our own team, I mean, they were I mean 24 into 7 we work, and we tried delivering the fastest first story on the site, fastest first news on the social media platform. And the objective here was so that we become the relevant, we can get the user attention, we can engage the audience, and you'd be happy to know that our traffic for the day was more than double. So there are users, there are audience who are waiting for such thing to happen. So there is already a demand side available, there is already a market available. The only network breeze has to happen.
Got it. So if we
You know,
move to
Prashant,
a different,
if you look at news channels today, the TV news channels today, they're nothing but a recap now. The
Yes,
real news is happening in the digital version of that news channel, right?
yes,
If you
yes.
look at BBC, you look at CNN, you look at Aastak, you look at any NDTV or any of these, the real news is cracking in digital world. They are popping notifications saying this happened, this happened, this happened, and you are getting updated real time, right? But what happens in those when you go back and switch on the TV and doing nothing but you're watching the same news in a recaptured, packaged, edited format? It's like a recap that you're watching. What used to happen with newspaper is your whole day's activities was captured, printed in the night, delivered to you in the morning. You are one day behind. Today's TV channels are few hours behind. The digital is the only way it's going to be going first. And what will happen is, just like creators, now there is a uh, like individuals are becoming stingers. Individuals are becoming the producers of news, right? Like what Harish's team does or my Instant Bollywood team does is they're doing it for the Bollywood industry, which as a entertainment news, right? But the same kind of news is available for all kind of functions, and like almost like the fastest finger first, that if you are in your neighborhood and there is a news happening, you will broadcast it. And content always has relevance in different geographies, right? My local news is relevant to my local society, but might not be a national news or a state news. But that relevance is always going to be there, and content will get created. It will keep getting bigger and the volumes will keep getting. There are so many new business models which will come the moment 5G comes, because those models are not feasible today because of
Right.
the cost, the delay, and the time. But with
Yeah.
5G coming, a lot of those models will become feasible.
Yeah,
One
yeah.
point I like to add to what Shahabuddin says, I mean, the content coming from the expert is always going to be the trusted. So there could be so many people creating the similar sort of content, but the expert, I mean, any doctor who's talking about something relevant to the his field, that is more people going to trust. So experts, content created by experts are going to be trusted, and this is going to continue in the future also.
Got it.
I think that's a good point too, because while I agree that most people get their information on their mobile and digital view, I think there's still an appetite for commentary, right? Which is where it is a recap. That's true. What you're getting, posted later, but most of what people are actually going for is other people's commentary on it, of somebody that they trust. So that expert, not necessarily just doctor, right? But even expert on news, or what
Yes.
other people think about it. I think there's still going to be an appetite for that, but getting more content in for them, and kind of changing that cycle of when content gets churned through is just getting faster and faster. And as the network extends deeper and deeper, high quality network, you just see more and more of that go through. So it
You know,
increases the opportunities for monetization. It really just changes the whole life cycle of content.
Yes.
Charlie, you will be surprised. 70% of the news that is broadcasted on TV, on which debates happen and then arguments happen, the origination of that news was always an individual broadcasting from a mobile
Yes.
phone.
Uh,
70% of that news, right? That's a lot of news coming, which means those thousands and hundreds of stingers which are hired by news agencies are not actually producing that content. They're actually either buying it from an individual who shot that video or captured that moment. And then there is depending on the intensity, like for example, if a politician is in trouble and that was captured by somebody, the debate could carry on for 20 days on TV with different experts coming and talking about it. But the origination of story happened by an individual, and that's what is important, because first you create content, then you create engagement, and then you create communication, right? So the initiation is very important.
Yeah, and also looking into the other aspect with regard to delivery as such. Earlier, we said, you know what, you go watch in the theater, come back, watch in the thing, come back, and there was, oh, you can't take your phones inside, cameras not allowed inside the theater, etc. To where we have come to now, wherein you can not only view a OTT on your app and the phone, you can also download for watching at a later point of time. That would mean there is the fear of piracy, but still the technological advancement is such a way that I can put in DRM into the thing that it cannot be taken out from this app. You cannot copy it. Say, for example, in a phone, if I go ahead and say a screen recording while I'm playing a video, immediately the video would stop. The app is sensing that you are recording this, and it would do something like this. So maybe some thoughts on
You know,
how
Prashant,
DRM is changing.
Prashant, if you look at the world, only the expensive things get pirated,
yes.
right? If you don't make it expensive, it would not need that piracy. I mean, that's what exactly T Series did, exactly the same thing a few decades back, and they did it beautifully. So your cost of a music cassette, which is a recorded music cassette, was 150 rupees, whereas a blank cassette was 30 rupees. So all of us at some point of time, or our younger generation, older generation, went to the music shop and said, "Give me these 5 songs." They would select from 5 different albums and say, "Write it on this one cassette and take 30 rupees from me," and he'll charge you 5 rupees more to give you that 35 rupees song. So you actually got 450 rupees worth of things in 35 rupees. What T Series did was bought the whole music album with the cassette included at 35 rupees. Now your cost of buying a new cassette to record it was more expensive than buying the original, so you ended up buying the original. Now similarly, if you look at fast drives, which is flash drives at airports and all of that, so you're sitting at the airport, you like a movie, you just press the button in. It is possible today on a closed loop that you can download it in less than 10 minutes, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. You can download 5 GB, 10 GB of data, right? And then you go into the flight and watch the movie on your flight. But if you make it at 2 rupees a value, right, make the cost so insignificant that it's not worth pirating. That's what the difference is. And when you have volumes, With volumes, the advantage is the original owners of the content make more money because they're charging micro amounts but in volumes. But the moment I say I want to charge 5,000 rupees for a movie premiere, everybody will pirate it. If I say 5 rupees a movie premiere, nobody will pirate it. That's the key difference.
No, we can go on this topic forever. I guess it's there's so much to talk upon. It's so enriching to hear what's happening on this, and then to debate upon what it can happen. While all of us need to wait and see tight form and shape it would take. I can see Neha on the screen pinging me and telling that you know what, you guys, time up, move the next speakers to come. So thank you very much for the audience. This was a very enriching and engaging session. Thanks for all the speakers. Good day.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prashant. Wonderfully moderated. Thank you so much, Ali, Shabi, and Harish. I think the audience also this was quite informational. So thank you so much for your time and in your time as well. Thanks a lot to all the audience who are here with us today. Please stay tuned for the next session and stay safe.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Neha.
Thank you.